right, are we on? All right. Good morning, everyone. I will start the attendance and offering around. So this is our third week of religious liberty, how the gospel shapes our first freedom. We're looking at looking at information in a couple different forums. We're going to start off again with some. We good. Okay. We're going to start off again looking at a few more slides from the National Constitution Center, talking about some landmark cases. Thank you. The Supreme Court and religious liberty. I would have figured that out in like 15 seconds, but you're just 2 steps ahead of me. And then we're going to look at, so since it's a 4-week session, there are 6 videos, so we are skipping ahead, but it really, I watched them and it's not, it's not discernible. So the 2 that we skipped, one was, I think, about religious liberty and mission of the church. But today we're going to focus on, it's going to be religious liberty in the public square. So we'll get to that. But we're going to start off with, again, a little bit from the slide deck. And very quick review, again, the text of the First Amendment leads with freedom of religion. The other freedoms that are viewed as natural law, right? They're freedoms that accrue to the individual. They come from God and not from government. And they're codified in the First Amendment. So religion's first in the text, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, they flow from that. And there are 2 key clauses. And last week we looked at 2 prongs, or 2 areas of case law focused on the Establishment Clause, that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. We looked at a few cases in the area of government funding, funding for churches, schools, religious organizations that originates with the government and some of the issues that brings up. And then we also looked at a few cases involving prayer. So today we're hitting the 3rd prong, religious symbols on government property. And one of the tests that came up from case law is known as the endorsement test. And you see the text of it here. I won't read the whole thing. But again, there's some, kind of some waffle words in here. A reasonable observer. Would a reasonable observer regard the display as endorsing religion? So, a lot of these cases, and we'll see a few of them, 10 Commandments, right? Public displays of the 10 Commandments, and sometimes in tablet form, crosses, nativity scenes, and the like. So there's sort of a briefing document that goes along with these slides, and the very succinct overview that they give of case law in this area is that the results have varied, not surprisingly. So a couple of important cases. Lynch versus Donnelly in 1984, the court upheld the nativity scene. And then in 1989, though, in Allegheny versus the ACLU, a different set of justices, also looking at an instance of a nativity scene, at the what does it say, at the top of the grand stairway in a courthouse, said no, that violates the Establishment Clause in that instance. So I don't think there were any other real key points on that. But there's the give and take between different sets of justices over time in this particular area. Has definitely been confusing, and this is a great illustration. Actually, there were 2 cases on the same day that were decided in 2005 related to public displays of the 10 Commandments, and they swung different ways. In one instance, they said that the display was okay in McCreary County versus the ACLU, that one was unconstitutional. But on the same day in Van Orden versus Perry, they said that it was okay. So really a lot of minutia in some of these areas. And just as a side note on these two particular cases, Justice Stephen Breyer was the only justice. He was a Clinton appointee from Massachusetts, but Justice Breyer was the only one in both of these cases that was in the majority. So I just thought that was an interesting sidelight.
So one that was decided for the entire nation.
Just like we talked about last week. Yep, exactly.
Sorry, we're talking about the Ten Commandments. Are they not on the outside of the Supreme Court and also?
I'm sure they are. Yeah, I'm sure they are.
Moses as a lawgiver is on the outside.
Yep. So yeah, and some sure in that instance they view it, and this is sort of where we're getting. I guess on the second bullet here, I added this slide. So it's same thing that I did last week. This one, I guess I mixed it in a little bit better with the fonts and whatnot, but this was not in the National Constitution Center slide deck. But I wanted to add a couple of recent cases that have kind of, well, we looked last week at the first two areas of the Establishment Clause. This current court has kind of broadened things, broadened the applicability and the areas in which they've upheld religious liberty. They've kind of, the pendulum swung back a little bit in terms of free expression. So, a lot of things maybe not going all that well in the culture, but in this one particular area, there have been a few pretty key victories lately. Woodring versus Jackson County, again, a nativity scene was upheld. And I guess the important part of this one, it doesn't really come across on the slide, but this was another instance where we talked about that Lemon test last week from Lemon versus Kurtzman in 1971, and that was a precedent test that the Supreme Court had been using for decades to kind of strike down instances of religious expression. Well, in this case in 2021, they used the phrase, fitting with a long national tradition to depict the historical origins of a traditional event. And again, that was applied to a nativity scene. And that was sort of a precursor to a case we talked about last week, and that comes up here again, Kennedy versus Bremerton School District. And that was the one where the court officially said, I believe it was a 7-2 decision, that they were done with the Lemon test. And they replaced it with the last bullet there, historical practices and understanding. And so what that allowed in that instance, the Bremerton versus or Kennedy versus the Bremerton School District, that was the football coach who prayed after a couple of games, and the school said, wow, you can't do that because we're going to, we the school district are going to get in trouble. And after the case was appealed all the way up to the Supreme Court, they said, no, not only are you not going to get in trouble, but he's allowed to do that. So in these, both of these cases, Woodring and Kennedy, the court was really swinging back in the direction of free expression. So that's the Establishment Clause case law in a very quick fly-through. And we're going to do, I don't think we're going to get all the way through free exercise this morning because we need to get into, want to get into the video and then have some discussion. But the other side of the text of the First Amendment as it pertains to religious liberty is the Free Exercise Clause. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, well, that's the Establishment Clause, sorry, but second part, prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So the next several slides kind of dig into this a little bit, and of course the operative point here is that we need to have, each person, each individual needs to have freedom of conscience to be able to express their religious beliefs. And there's there was a more, I thought, black and white kind of test. I'll see if I can find it in my notes here. But you can see that where the government requires conduct that a person's religion bans, there's a distinction between that and where the government is banning behavior that a person's religion requires. So, some of the case law, and I'll just kind of jump into, what one that was sort of the landmark case here, was Reynolds versus the United States. And this was a unanimous opinion. This was, in the 1800s, polygamy. I mean, this was something that, I guess as a Mormon, this, George Reynolds ended up being the litigant in the case, but it probably could have been, anyone from that sect. This guy's case came before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said no. Even though that's what you believe to be a central part of your religion, it crosses the line of free expression, freedom of expression in the public square. It violates reasonable laws, and therefore you can't do that. So, and again, some of the text from the opinion appears on these next couple slides. Won't read every single one, but that was a landmark case where the court said, the government actually has a compelling interest in telling you that even though something may be endemic to your religion, you can't do that. Yeah, I guess this is what I was trying to get at from Cantwell versus Connecticut in 1940. There's sort of two competing concepts here, the freedom to believe and the freedom to act. So, individual conscience, we can believe what we want, but the court has said, and understandably so, that you can't always act on that belief. And so that's really the tug of war that we've seen in case law since 1940, as they came up with that principle. Sherbert versus Werner in 1963. This is, a Seventh-day Adventist, a lady who quit her job rather than work on what to her was the Sabbath. And the Supreme Court did not think that was okay. So they told the state, no, you can't require her to work on Saturday because that's a reasonable expression of her beliefs. So that was an important case too. And a similar case in 1972 with the Amish. I think this was, it may not be on the slides, but I think the age of 14. That was the age when the Amish were basically saying, look, well, our kids will go to school up to that point, but at the age of 14, they're going to work. And the school said, no, they need to go to school up till the age of 18. And again, the Amish freedom of expression was upheld in that case. So, interesting set of circumstances. And again, the court at that point in time was swinging in a direction, sort of in favor and kind of a broad interpretation in favor of religious liberty. Again, lots of background on these, and I think I'm probably gonna, I think I'm gonna stop it there, because there was there was some legislation that came up in the early 1990s. So I'm going to use this as a jumping off point. We've got one more week, and we'll cover the rest of these slides next week. Starting again with, there's a case here in 1990, and then some legislation and a few more cases. But I think for now we'll jump into our video. It's about 25 minutes long, so we'll have a good 15 or so minutes for discussion after that. So we'll wrap these up next week. All right.